dear friend or brother, Col Jacques Baud, is here with us. Welcome back, Col.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting me again in your show. Thank you very much.
Carol, let me start with what has happened last night and a breaking news that came out right now. And last night we've learned that Donald Trump announced that the United States would escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And what has happened in the aftermath of that? And we had an oil tanker attempted to make the run without Iran authorizations. Then it was struck by our IRGC along the same route that the United States has designated as a safe corridor via Omani territorial waters, because the United States was trying to, find some sort of route to let these tankers pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Then it was struck by IRGC. And the other point that came out just moments ago, that Iranian army, Artesh, has announced that it prevented the entry of the U.S. Navy destroyer into the Strait of Hormuz after swift warning. It says that the further news will be announced soon. And it seems that Donald Trump, not only because yesterday when he said that, I thought he wants to manipulate the market, but it seems not only doing that sort of manipulation, he physically tries to do something. But I don't see the situation changing, because we had this war, we had this sort of posture on the part of the United States, and nothing militarily has changed in the Strait of Hormuz. Your understanding of that?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that the Strait of Hormuz is shared between two countries. I mean, the passage through the straits. And obviously you have Iran in the northern part and Oman in the southern part. And the Iranian forces have declared the southern part, I mean, the waters that are in fact Oman territorial water, as a prohibited zone. And some say there are mines there or things like this. I'm not sure, but thing is that the waters, the Omani waters, are considered as forbidden, and the only allowed passage goes through the Iranian waters. That means the northern part of the strait. So that's one thing, and that's also the reason why you had those. You may remember, Arakshi traveled to Oman 2 weeks ago in order to discuss this issue, and then he went back and forth actually, because he wanted also to indicate the Pakistanis between Islamabad and Muscat, because he wanted also to Arakshi wanted to tell the Pakistanis what were the result of the discussion with Oman. Oman has behaved as a quite neutral country in this conflict, although it is part of OPEC. It's also concerned by the issue, obviously, of the Strait of Hormuz. Although since Oman is mainly on the Gulf of Oman part of the side of the conflict, or the Sea of Oman, depending on how you call it, meaning that Oman is not affected by, and it could even benefit from the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. In any case, it seems that Omanis and Iranians are in agreement on what's happening. The part which is open for traffic is controlled by Iran, meaning that it's a limited traffic. So Iran has never totally closed the traffic. It's very important to say that. But they filter the traffic. They obviously, the Israelis or US ships, including, and obviously military or naval forces are prohibited to go into the Persian Gulf. But essentially, there is freedom, limited freedom, and limited management. And that's also what you have in the agreement that was proposed a couple of days ago by Iran. It was a managed freedom of passage in the Strait of Hormuz. That's what the Iranian want. So they want also, because they need to get money for the damages caused by the US, and that's the rationale behind the toll which is asked for by the Iranians for those ships who enter the strait. So that's the global picture. Now, apparently, the US and Trump has decided on a Project Freedom. That means that he will allow or facilitate the transit of ships who want to enter or exit the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. But again, here there are conflicting stories, because although if you listen to Trump, but again, it's very hard to make up his mind because it's very difficult to understand what he means exactly. He suggests that the US Navy would escort ships through the strait. But in reality, it's not what it seems to happen. In reality, it seems to the US Navy has a, if I may use that word, it has an advisory role, if you want. He may advise those who enter the strait where are the safe roads or routes through the strait. But apparently, the US Navy doesn't want to engage physically into the strait. And as you said, the Iranians, and especially the IRGC, have threatened to attack any ship that would break the interdiction, the Iranian prohibition of entry. So that's where we are. Obviously, the idea of having this Project Freedom is obviously to signal the market that the US is there and there is a willingness to stabilize the situation. But again, the problem is that you never know exactly what the US want exactly to do. I mean, one day Trump say something, the next day he says something else. Remember that normally we should have had a ceasefire and no problems in the on the Strait of Hormuz. And just a couple of days after the start of the ceasefire, the US unilaterally decided to start with a blockade. So we have here a situation which is completely chaotic in a way. And again, what this Project Freedom means exactly, nobody knows. And again, we have those conflicting stories. And that's the reason why I'm not sure that even if Trump tries to manipulate the market, or let's say stabilize to try to be fair, but I mean, manipulate the market, certainly. Stabilize, I'm not sure. Let's put it that way. Again, the way the US is managing this crisis is self-destructing somehow, because it doesn't provide the stability. I mean, if it's forbidden, it's forbidden, and if it's allowed, it's allowed. But you cannot shift from one day to the other. One day it's allowed, the next day it's forbidden, and things like this. This uncertainty is exactly what makes the market worse. And it's not new. We had exactly the same thing when it was about the tariffs. Remember last year when Trump announced the tariff, one day it was 25%, next day it was 50, after it was reduced to 10, and then 100 and 150. you never know exactly what is the situation. And if you want to have a stable situation on the market, you need to have some kind of certainty. If it's closed and it's closed, then it's closed. Then at least you have this kind of stability. If it's allowed, it's allowed. Fine. But changing every day just contributes to the international mess on the oil markets and other markets as well, because we talk about the oil, but in fact you have also problem with sulfur and other strategic materials that that affect also the Western world and especially also industrial powers. So again, this is the problem here is the management of the crisis, as it has always been with Trump. He has no consistency in the way he manages things. He has no strategy. He makes tactics, and tactics can change overnight. And that's exactly what we have. And again, I'm not sure this make America great again. I'm not sure.
Yeah, here is, Colonel, what Fars News reported in Iran. It says Iran targeted U.S. warship with 2 missiles after it ignored Iran's warning. You know, Iran fired 2 missiles at an American patrol boat following Iran's warning. Here is what they're reporting. Do you think that, how desperate is the situation on the part of Donald Trump? Because we know the situation is somehow getting so confused in the and because militarily Donald Trump would not be able to open up the Strait of Hormuz. If that was the solution, he would have done it before. And with the case of GCC countries, they're feeling the pressure, they're feeling what's going on, but they're not even, they're not capable as well. What is the solution? Because you don't see diplomacy working with what's going on. Iran, just yesterday we learned about the new plan, 14-point plan on the part of Iran, and which is based on the 10-point plan with some preconditions. It's not anything different from what it was before. You understand?
Yes. No. We are in a situation where we have a kind of asymmetry, or maybe dissymmetry, although the logic may be different. So I would call it asymmetry between U.S. and Iran, and that's what the U.S. has not understood. Iran is in an existential war, while the U.S. is not. And if you read what Donald Trump wrote just a couple of days, that after, by the way, received this plan from the Iranians, he said, well, nevertheless, Iran must be punished. They haven't been punished enough for all what they have done against humanity and the world. So think like that. So we are here in something that goes beyond rational. It's what did Iran do to the world? I don't know. This is again this idea that Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world, which obviously is wrong. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There is not. I don't understand. I mean, obviously, you have groups like Hezbollah or Hamas who are designed by the West as terrorists, but they don't. If you start to establish criteria for terrorism, then you find a Hezbollah, and both Hamas and Hezbollah don't fall in this category. Not even all these groups that exist in Iraq, for instance, who are Shia, who are and of course, people will say Iran-backed groups. Well, but these are resistance movements against an illegal occupation. That applies to Iraq, which is still occupied by the US. This applies to Hezbollah, which is still occupied by Israel. And that's applied to Hamas, which territory is still occupied by Israel. And I remind you the decision of the International Court of Justice of July 2024, saying that all occupation of the Palestinian territory, meaning Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank, is illegal, period. And the decision of the International Court of Justice that Israel must get out of these territories. And Hamas, Fatah, and all these groups are in fact resistance movement against an illegal occupation, period. So in that sense, they don't fall into the category of a terrorist organization. Although they might use terrorist methods if you want, but again, we don't have evidence of that. And that is something that we need to say. So the fact that Iran backs this kind of movement doesn't mean that it's a sponsor of terrorism. The real sponsor of terrorism, in fact, is the West, but it's another topic, and we will not enter that today. In any case, why Iran needs to be destroyed, I still don't understand. And that's part of the irrationality of this conflict on the US side. On the Iranian side, they have a rationality because they have been attacked. And that's very physical. That's extremely, there's evidence of that. And therefore, they defend themselves. And that applies both to US and Israel. So from that position, Iran is much stronger than the US. And in fact, all the explanations given by the US administration on the reason why they enter in conflict with Iran, why they started these attacks on the 28th of February and all that shows that the US doesn't know exactly why they did they started this war. Sometimes they say it's because Israel requested that. So that's what you see on the website of the State Department, by the way. But some other time they said, no, this because Israel was attacking and we were preventing or trying to preempt an attack on us because Israel attacked first. Well, but nobody knows exactly why they are there. Iranians know why they are there. They know why they fight. US and Israel don't know why they fight. And that's why they have to come up with a narrative on that. They have to come up with some allegations of terrorism and whatever. And that gives Iran a very strong position on that. And we see that, in fact, this plan that has been provided by Iran is only the reply to a proposal made by the US, a 9-point plan that was provided by the US, which, by the way, I haven't seen any description of that plan. I don't know exactly what the US has asked for in this 9-point plan. The US have not published the detail of this plan. In any case, the 14-point plan provided by Iran is a response to this 9-point plan. So we see that Iran has absolutely no intention whatsoever to comply with the demands of the US. And they are ready to fight for this. And not only they are ready to fight for this, but they have a stronger position, both at operational level and at political level. They have been attacked. Everybody knows that. Everybody acknowledged that the attack on the 20th of February by Israel and the US was illegal, unprovoked and illegal. So we are in a situation where the US is politically, strategically, and operationally in a poor situation. So now they try to have some kind of show of force. But again, they know that if they start to enter with US Navy ships into the Strait of Hormuz, and if the Iranian reply or even destroy one of those ships, what will the US do? Because they cannot, then they have to do something. They cannot say, okay, too bad, we go back. They cannot. Trump cannot. And it's probably not his personality either. So that means that saying that you will send your Navy ships into the Strait of Hormuz is putting the fingers in something that you don't know where it leads to. And that's exactly the problem of the US, because they cannot afford to have a full-fledged war with Iran. They cannot. They can probably bomb Iran, as they've done so far. They can probably intensify air campaign against this, most probably. But will that solve the problem? Because Iran, in a response, will annihilate Israel. So if you want to destroy Israel, then continue putting ships into the Strait of Hormuz. If I take some shortcuts here.